Good evening, one and all, and welcome to the College Football Kickoff Show Pick Six. 6 takeaways from what was perhaps the most insane weekend of college football that I can recall. And I suppose we can go ahead and do 5 of those 6 takeaways in one shot. USC, Michigan, Tennessee, Missouri, and Alabama. All 5 of them, Missouri, Michigan, USC, Tennessee, and Alabama, were all losers over the weekend, and perhaps none bigger than Alabama losing to Vanderbilt on the road. Too much to that game to even describe how big it was for Vanderbilt. As an Alabama fan, yeah, it hurts. But I'm reminded of one very important thing that I think every football fan should be cognizant of. These things tend to run in cycles. Just as the case is when you win, don't expect to win every week. We're not living in the 1980s anymore. We're not living in the 1990s anymore. The fact of the matter is that things do have a way of going around and coming around. So it would not surprise me that when Texas takes the field as the number 1 team in the country against Oklahoma on Saturday, Oklahoma will be inspired by what just took place this past Saturday. So that's one way of looking at it. And as a football fan, and particularly for someone like me who doesn't take losses nearly as hard as I used to, there are some things that I still feel the need to have some fun with. Namely, USC losing to the Golden Gophers. Just a short time ago, I did get a new USC lanyard. So we now have officially retired that nylon lanyard that I have been using in my picks recently. But now that that lanyard's out of the way, I can now do this. Go Gophers! It's awesome that Minnesota beat USC. I'm very proud of what PJ Fleck and his boys did, beating the Trojans. And not only did the Trojans get beat, but they basically were bounced out of the top 25. So, just on that thinking alone, yes, it was awesome to see that. Texas A&M beating Missouri, well, it was going to come sooner or later. That much we do know, and that much we did know. And Texas A&M took Missouri to the woodshed. Michigan losing to Washington, well, that's about as cosmetic a victory for Washington as they'll get this year, avenging the national championship loss and thinking they're still running the country. Wrong again. Beating Michigan isn't exactly par for your own course. You still have some work to do later this season. There will be some games on the schedule that I am sure are going to pose problems for those beloved Huskies. So while I picked Michigan, and rightfully so, yes, lost that one too. I lost all of my picks. All 5 of them. And I'm not fretting. No. I got bigger fish to fry. And a lot of that has to do with basically what will round out the takeaways. 5 takeaways in one shot, with all congrats to the teams that won, not so much for the teams that lost. Missouri to Texas A&M. USC to Minnesota, Michigan to Washington, Tennessee to Arkansas, and of course Alabama to Vanderbilt. Props to everybody for making this the most incredible Saturday we've had in some time. And that can only be eclipsed. And it was something that Chris Fowler himself had touched on in his nightcap recap, which I always make a point in watching. He mentioned Army and Navy. They're both 5-0. They're not ranked. They don't need to be. But what they're doing right now is nothing short of incredible. And they're doing it in ways we never could have imagined. For those of you who plan to watch the Army-Navy game this December, let me assure you of this. It will not be your prototypical Army-Navy game. The way these teams have been winning games has been absolutely incredible. So they definitely need to be looked upon as a source of inspiration, not just as service academy teams, but just for the sake of this great game that we know and love in college football. That much I can say with every fiber of my being. It's been fun to watch so far, and it's going to get more fun as the weeks go by. Both teams have games, neutral site games at that, against Notre Dame. And could they both, or could one or the other, steal a win? Hey, never say never. So Army and Navy, they get that sixth takeaway by themselves for the simple fact that they continue to play very good football right now. Both are 5-0, as we said. Both have a shot at bowl eligibility, and I'll get to the bowl eligibility part shortly. I just lost my train of thought. When it comes to bowl eligibility, Army, Navy, and Air Force, who Navy beat over the weekend, don't have to worry about helmetry eligibility, as they are permanent fixtures on it. So they'll definitely be on the tree regardless of how they finish out their seasons. So there you go. Speaking of bowl eligibility, Indiana and Miami are the first two teams to claim it over the weekend. Indiana continues to play very, very good football. I watched a little bit of their game against Northwestern, and that Curtis Rourke is definitely the kind of quarterback that I like, where he's under the radar and he's making a lot of noise, but yet nobody hears it. Why? Because it's Indiana. They're 6-0. They made it through, by and large, the easiest part of their schedule. But now the question becomes, how do they better the resume with the games they got left? Time will tell. Miami, meanwhile, had to rally to beat Cal in their game last night, and Miami now continues to be on its own direct path to game against Clemson. I don't know if Pitt's on the schedule. Pitt, by the way, 5-0 too. And they made it to the top 25. Just a short time ago, they announced all the rankings. And I think, I'm not sure, but the marching orders have been given as far as what games will be considered the big ones for when I return to Cameron this Saturday for the college football kickoff show. Lanyard selections. The Lanyard selection show from Cameron. We already know about Texas and Oklahoma, Ole Miss and LSU having at it as well. Not that I care about that matchup. I'd rather watch paint dry and pigs fly than to see Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly mug for the camera whenever, things go right and wrong for their respective teams. I'm just happy they don't employ coach cams, because I tell you, if they did, then let's face it, the folks at ESPN and the SEC network would be milking the cow dry. Enough already. Done with it. For me, there's only one game that matters. That's Oregon hosting Ohio State. And it looks very much like, and rightfully so, this is the biggest game of the season. We knew this going in. It's going to be the biggest game of the season. Regular season, that is. And it's so big on so many levels. And I'll touch upon them again when I get the camera to make the pick. First off, if I'm LeBron James, I stay off social media, but he won't, because he's LeBron James. Yes, he likes Ohio State. Yes, he likes Oregon. You think I give two crumbs of an F-bomb about that? No. I could care less about the most overrated player in basketball. I do not need to read or hear his opinions on anything. Just retire and ride off into the sunset of your very own making. Enough. I don't want to hear about any of it. That's one thing I'm sure we'll probably get, spoon-fed in our consciousness. Bad enough we got to put up with the travesty every Sunday, Monday, Thursday in the National Fake Ball League. I'm not even going to touch on that because, that's separate. But Ohio State and Oregon, so big on so many levels, and probably the most biggest of which, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see it. The whole trick is to make sure that I get the picks in before I get to the point in the day where it's coming up on noon and we have college game day from Eugene, and I am hoping and praying for Lee Corso to do this game day more than anything else. He's got deep affections for Brutus the Buckeye, and he definitely has deepest affections for the Duck, or as I call him, Ducky. If there was ever a game day that needs to be watched, and despite the hijinks of Pat McAfee, and Pat McAfee will be great for the game day experience anyway, as opposed to what we saw in Berkeley yesterday with as Chris Fowler so eloquently put it, Marshawn Lynch in an altered state. Like, do we really need to see that? Now, it's bad enough that people are just begging and pleading for Corso to retire. This game, Saturday, and everything building up to it, needs to have his presence there in Eugene. It'll be big. It'll be big. Can't wait for it. So, we are going to put a wraps on this. It's coming up on 15 minutes on this Pick 6 edition for Week 6. Week 6 and the Pick 6. What a Week 6 it was. And by the way, we got a busy week ahead, starting Tuesday night. So Monday, tomorrow, we're going to be making at least one pick, maybe more, who knows. So keep it right here on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For now, for the college football kickoff show, Pick 6, Brandon Rutherman signing off, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.